everybody. This is Mr. Marr with Beat Theory on my Little Martian on the Beat YouTube page. I'm putting all of my tutorials that I'm using for class projects up here. So if you get far behind, if you learn better just by watching, this is an option. If you want to get caught up at home, I just want you to do the project, right? So I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for you to understand the concepts, and you can get a real hands-on experience of making a beat yourself. We're using a template. I don't have that template made available for the public, but if there's anyone who's not my student who's watching this, just send me a message, and I'd be happy to send it to you, or I might create a link in the description. So, step one, you're going to go File, Open from my computer. My students are all using Chromebooks, so there's actually a option on this side of their window to go to the Google Drive. So you can go directly to your Google Drive. So you're going to double click on the Google Drive, go to your shared folder that you shared with me, and I put in your folder the Sound Designer template. So I'm going to open my official copy of the Sound Designer template. All right. So I'm going to help you guys get caught up from steps 1 through 3 today. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking 3 different synthesizer tracks, and then we're going to use sound design, which is synthesizers, editing synthesizers, to make the sounds fit a little bit better. So there's 3 tracks we're going to be looking at. To keep things simple, we're going to start off just by getting our notes in place. This doesn't always have to be your process, but in this case it is. So I'm going to take all these notes, these red notes, and I'm going to click and drag until they're across from a blue line. So these blue lines on the right, they're a scale guide that I put there. The reason why they're blue is I took the velocity tool, which is this right here, the note edit tool, and velocity. I turn the velocity all the way down so that you won't be able to hear them. They won't play. They're just there to look at and remind you what notes you want to play. But this is a technique that a lot of people who use FL Studio use. So I tried to adapt it for Audiosauna because this is how people are thinking about music today. Kind of fitting things in with a scale in like a visual way like this. So I'm going to take all these notes. I'm just going to move them down. I've seen some students move left to right. You can do that. I have a preset rhythm that kind of works. So if you make edits, you might want to keep it simple and not move too much left to right. Like I've seen some students putting all their notes like over here, and you can do that. It's going to sound a little funny. It's going to sound a little better if these are fitting more with the patterns that I'm giving you. But I do think that's kind of up to you. I do want to give some room for your own creativity. So we're gonna try that. I do know the theory of like how to make a melody or a pattern, and thinking about all the scales and everything. I'm trying to do this project just looking at, do these lines line up with these lines? Since each track has the same scale, if you do that, the notes are pretty much going to fit together by today's standards. So I'm going to take these, move them down. I'm going to pick this note and that note. Cool. So that's my pad. This is going to be my pluck. We talked about the different synthesizer types at the beginning of this unit where we did the crayon project. So then the last one we have is the lead. I'm going to move these down. One thing that sometimes works well for melodies when you're making loops is having them end by going up. It just kind of has that sound of like something else is about to happen. You can hear it in someone's voice if their voice goes up. You're like, oh, are you about to say something else? And that's kind of how a loop works. You don't want it to feel like it's ending. It's always kind of like starting again and starting again. So I'm going to make sure that this goes up a little bit at the end, a little bit of variation. Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds good. And again, you can edit these notes when you hear them. So I'm going to press the red M on all three tracks to make sure that they're gray, and that means you're going to be able to hear them. The M means mute. So let's hear what we have so far. So it sounds kind of like a lot of noise. I've heard students be like, well, that doesn't sound very good. And you're right. We're going to use sound design to create some clarity, just be able to hear what's going on a little better. So we're going to start with track one. Track one is our pluck. I'm going to double click on this box right here to open up the synth window. First thing you need to do is go to the presets. For the pluck, we're going to take a wind instrument and we're going to turn it into a pluck, which is essentially like taking a flute and turning it into a violin, which in real life is like insane. I don't think that's a thing that's possible, but on a synthesizer, it's just a couple little knobs and sliders. So I'm going to pick flute 2, and we're going to adjust the decay in the volume envelope. Make sure that you're paying attention, especially on the stepper or just listening to me, the difference between the volume and the filter. So the volume changes the actual sound, like how loud or quiet it is, and filter changes tone, which is kind of hard to explain, but when you start messing around with it, you hear what I mean by that. So we're going to start with the decay on the volume envelope. Right now it's at 0, so it's not being used at all. There is no decay. We're going to move this up between 0.2 and 0.02. So you see that 0.154, that works. You don't want any full numbers. You actually really want like as small of a number as possible so that it's a short sound. That's what a pluck is. It's a short sound. And again, we did a couple lessons on that earlier in January, I believe. So I'm going to mute my other track so I can hear just this. So it's a little more pluck sounding, but it's a little soft on the beginning of the note. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the attack on the filter envelope, and we can actually see here that it's up just a little bit, and we're going to move that down. So when I do that, it's going to change the tone on the beginning of the note, so it's a little less soft and it's a little harsher. And this isn't on the stepper, but if you want to, you could also change the attack on the volume envelope, which is only up just a tiny bit. But if I put the attack on both to 0, you're going to hear a little more sharpness at the beginning of the note. Cool. So that works for me. I'm going to exit out here. I'm going to go to my pad next. So one thing I like to do with the pads is actually move these left to right. So they start at a little bit of a different time, and it kind of helps with the fade in concept. So we need the presets over here. I just double clicked on that. Presets over here. Gonna go down and we're gonna take an organ patch and we're gonna turn it into a pad. So let's listen to that, what that sounds like just regular on its own. So right when it starts, it comes in full volume. Right when it stops immediately. So we want that to kind of swell in. So we're gonna stick to just the volume envelope right now. We're gonna move the attack up to between 2 and 3. So it fades in. Let's listen to how that has changed things. All right, so you hear how that fades in, and then we're going to want it to fade out a little bit too. So we're going to use the release in this case, and we want that between 1 and 3. So I'm going to just move that up. I don't want it too long, but let's try that. Cool. Let me just add a little bit more to that release. I'm going to exit that out. I'm going to mute that. I want to just focus on my third track. So the third track is the lead. Right now I have it set to a bell patch. And a bell is almost kind of like a pluck. It's a, it starts loud. It gets quiet kind of quickly. You can see the decay on both of these envelopes is low. If the decay is low, it's going to be more of that pluck sound. So let's hear that. So we want that to be a lead, and the characteristic lead sound is that it starts at the volume like right away that it's going to be playing, and then when it stops right away. So it's just like a sustained tone. So this one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to pick Bell's Wet because I've heard some students using this, and there's just one little tweak we want to do that's just on this one. For both of them, or for all four of them, I should say, all you need to do is volume envelope, filter envelope, the S, the sustain. We just need that all the way up. So that's just going to make the note hold out the same volume the whole time. So let's hear that. Right, so this one has that blah, blah, blah kind of sound at the beginning. So that's actually coming from here. OSC is an oscillator, and that creates waves, sound waves that we're shaping. And right now the attack is up, so that's saying that the start of that note is kind of going up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, move it all the way down. That was the attack, the A slider in OSC2, which is short for oscillator. So that's going to work a little better for what we want. It's less like a bell. It's a little more like just a sustained note. So let's hear what that sounds like with everything. And honestly, that's a pretty good start. From there, we're going to be editing some other things, adding in drums and bass, arranging, and mixing too. So I'll have those videos up later so you can do the whole project just by watching. Because I just want you guys to get a chance to make a beat yourself and see what goes into it from the inside out. So here we go. All you need to do next is File, Save to my computer. So this is really important. If you try to save over Sound Designer template, just as it is not going to save. It's going to tell you that it's saving. It's not saving. You're pulling that file from Google Drive, and I have it set to be, you can open it, you can't edit it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this Sound Design 3F. I have a bunch of different versions of this that I've been working on while I've been developing this lesson. So I've been saving each of my different versions here. I just made a 3E when I did this tutorial video the first time about 10 minutes ago. Trying it again. I'm going to call this 3F. And probably the most important part, aside from that you just need to change the name, is it must end with .song. Audiosauna can only see a file if it ends with .song. So you might save your file, but if you don't add .song onto the end of it, Audiosauna isn't going to be able to see it or open it up at all. So it's essential so that you can keep using that same file and building on what you've already done, and you don't have to redo steps you've already taken. After that, press save. And that is it. So I will probably be putting up videos for the rest of this. Again, if you're interested in the template, just let me know. Send me a message. And if you're one of my students, just let me know if you have any questions. I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Just ask. All right? I think that is it. See you later.